Welcome back, everybody, to OCVarsity.com, Gridiron Show Extra. Steve Fryer here with Carlos Arias and Dan Albano. And, fellas, we're going to talk a little bit about what our thoughts are right now as we start getting ready to have our great debate for the Orange County Players of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, and the All-County team. Let's talk a little bit, guys, about the Player of the Year candidates. You know, a couple of names that come to mind really quickly for me. Connor Manning, maybe Offensive Player of the Year, quarterback at El Toro, record-setting year. And then you got to figure out, what are you going to do with Max Redfield of Mission Viejo? Maybe the best overall player in the county, just as good on offense as he was on defense. And then you got Thomas Duarte, ditto, just as good on offense and just as good at defense for Mater Dei's Monarchs. Heck, you got J.C. Genova at Mater Dei. I think he leads that Pac-5 finalist in tackles and sacks both. So we got some interesting names to talk about here. Then you got the slew of guys at Tustin, starting with Terrence Martinez, led the county in touchdowns. Drake Martinez, Laguna Beach rather, had a pretty good year. Man, I don't know where to start and where to end, so I'm going to hand it over to you, Dan. What do you think?
Well, hey, while we're here at Garden Grove, we got to give props to Garden Grove because they did quite a job on Drake Martinez in the semifinals. So big props to the Argonauts. We were here on their field. But, I think offensively, Offensive Player of the Year, I think the guy who's really on the rise for me, I think you really got to consider is Thomas Duarte, because he's got 15 touchdown receptions. That's not a county record or anything. There's been more guys that have, gotten more touchdown receptions. But, I mean, that's, for his amount of receptions, the amount of TDs he has per reception, what he's meant for that team, the playmaking ability, the spark he's given them, that's still a lot of touchdowns. So I think Thomas Duarte right now, and the way he's performed in the big game, of course, in the Pac-5 competition, and then for me the debate is, against Connor Manning, who's, of course he had the struggle game against Mission Viejo, real good team, but he did play very well the next game against Santa Margarita, so props to Connor. But for me, Offensive Player of the Year, that's where it's at.
Carlos Arias, your thoughts, please.
Well, I think you mentioned a lot of names and didn't even bring up Villa Park's Meki Tafuno.
Oh, okay.
I mean, this guy, like I said last week, was a beast. I mean, just, crushing Tustin, defenders through the fog and, just leading Villa Park. He's an awesome player. I really, am super impressed by him. But Thomas Duarte is another one on my radar, big time. Just some of the catches he makes are just ridiculous. I mean, reaching up over defenders and pulling the ball back. I think that was against Santa Margarita. And, he's just an amazing guy. Max Redfield, too, that same kind of player. They do it on both sides of the ball. You could practically make them, either of them, the offensive, and then the other one, the defensive player of the year. I mean, they're both fantastic.
For me defensively, switching there, I think the two best guys I probably saw this year, on defense, were two safeties. I really liked Connor O'Brien at Santa Margarita, punishing hitter, and then I also liked, Redfield, the way he played, the way he could, do it all on defense, even blocking punts. He was a real good special teams player.
You know what? I'm glad you brought up Connor O'Brien in that game that they lost to St. Bonaventure in overtime. Fantastic game. After the game, Connor O'Brien played so good on both sides of the ball. Every single coach from St. Bonaventure came by and said, I'm looking forward to seeing you play on Saturdays. They were just all so impressed by him. The guy is absolute stud. So, yeah, he's got to be in the mix, too.
And then there's the other kid we didn't mention, too. I almost forgot. It was on that same Mission Viejo team, Defensive Player of the Year, Garrett Marino, number 99. That was the best defensive lineman I saw by far. So we got a defensive – you got your defensive lineman right there, and he's got to push, Redfield and for, O'Brien. But what I'm going to suggest, and if we can get it done in the future, I think it's time for the register. We do an offensive and defensive player of the year. We have to come up with an overall player of the year. That, in my opinion, and that's something we got to get a new award, because this is the year really to do it, in my opinion.
In my opinion, the football all-county meeting is already way too long as it is. We're not adding more to that.
I could make it longer there, Carlos.
Yeah, didn't last year we had an all-purpose player of the year all of a sudden just at the last minute there, too? Yeah, bring your sleeping bag, fellas, for that all-county meeting next Tuesday. It's going to be a wild one. Heck, we videotape this. We should video that, because that'll be the most entertaining thing you'll ever see here at OCVarsity.com, where we've got you covered.